I've just received a package from ARRTX. They asked me to do an honest review of their paint and paper, and I've heard some really good things, so I was excited to put it to the test. It's extremely well packaged, which is always great if you're buying it as a gift for someone or even for yourself. So that was impressive. Now it's time to open the paints. They come in a pink, pretty cardboard box. I was totally amazed to see 24 full-size pans inside. That was way more than I expected. They're covered with a transparent vellum cover stating the name of the paint, the pigment used, the light fastness, and the transparency. The pans themselves don't have labels on them, so if you want to remember what they are, I suggest a permanent marker to write their names on the pans. There's a legend on the back of the box that tells you what all the symbols are. 5 stars means that the paint's going to last for more than 100 years. There's yellow ochre comes in 5 stars. There are quite a few 4 stars, 3 stars, and the least one is actually Prussian blue with only 2. And that one will last about 15 to 20 years. Also, most of them are transparent, and the only fully opaque one is the lamp black. But for the price of these, there's transparent color, saturated and bright, and a pure pigment composition. Let's have a look at this. This is the Watercolor Journal. It's 100% cotton, highly absorbent, color lifting, and cold press. It's so nice to have a proper journal. It's bound like this. The pages are perforated, which is brilliant because, if you want to remove one, I think that if you have a beautiful journal, you probably want to keep all these paintings together. But if you make a mess of one, which can happen to all of us, you can just easily remove it and no one will know. I love that. Okay, so now comes the test. We've got to paint something. Unfortunately, the paints don't come with a mixing palette, so you need to use your own or transfer the pans into another paint tin. I'd like to keep my journal really neat, so I'm using a ruler to rule up my swatch sheet. Now I'm going to spare you this exercise, but mind you, do you know, when you're not inspired, the absolute best thing you can do is swatch your colours, because you'll find a beautiful surprise in there and you'll say, wow, I didn't even realise I had that colour, or how beautiful is that? And you'll get inspired to paint that strawberry for the first time, or that flower, or anything else for that matter. So it's all going well, but now look what's happened. That doesn't look like phthalo green. You know what happened? The paints tipped out of the box earlier. Some of the dark colours, they all look so similar. I just put them back in. Phthalo green could not possibly look like that. In the end, I cut out a little square of watercolour paper and stuck it over the top, and I had my colours in order. So there's another reason to write the names on your pans. After swatching out the colours, I'm suitably impressed that the colours are beautifully vibrant and very transparent. So now it's time to paint something. And during this painting, I will try several techniques that will show us the performance of the paper. I went for a walk earlier and I was inspired by these mushrooms I found on the side of the road. Incidentally, they looked like toadstools, but they were a bit on the brown side, so I'm just making them a bit more red. I've wet the paper and applying the pale red. And then I'm just going to layer over the top of it with other reds. I haven't masked out the little blemishes or whatever you want to call those little markings on the mushroom. I'm just going to lift them out with a tissue. So just with a dry tissue and a little bit up the top here. And now, while the paper's still damp, I'm coming in with a bit of cadmium red deep. The colours certainly are very creamy. I really love that. This would make such a beautiful gift. Now, this is crimson. Let's see how that goes. I guess it's very similar to the Cad Red Deep, so it's not making that much of a difference for me. So maybe a little bit of lifting with my brush. And now, while it's still all wet, I'm going to use burnt sienna. Red is one of those colours that if you add the complementary to it, chances are you'll make it go too brown, unless that's what you want to do. I'm finding this burnt sienna to be the perfect shadow colour for the red. It's a little bit different to what I'm used to. I would say it's just a little bit cooler. Try to lift again a little bit. Make a little shape in there, and that's still okay. See how there's bulges here? I am gently adding some paint to suggest the shape and the form. It feels lovely with some very rich and creamy burnt sienna. Going to come around some of these edges here because I can see that they're very dark. I'll allow that to dry. I'd like to try a few different things. I'm going to place a piece of masking tape over the mushroom like this, and I'm going to mark in some grass like that, and then see how it cuts out. Here I have a little blade, and I'm going to cut out this grass blade, and this will show us two things. It'll show us how I've cut through the paper, and also how it lifts. Oops, I possibly didn't lift the masking tape close enough to the paper. I should have been more careful. Just something to look out for. And now with a scrubbing brush and some clean water, I'll wet it and just leave it for a moment. It's always a better option. And then I can scrub it. And I'm also looking for any pilling. Might be a little tiny bit of pilling there. But mind you, I am scrubbing. And pull it off. I think you'll have to be careful with some masking tape because this part of the paper came off. Maybe it's the masking tape, I'm not sure. I do have masking tape around the edges, so we'll just have to see for later. But I'm going to wait for all this to dry off. I can apply some colours to the background, and here I'm going to experiment with some layering as well. So I'm putting a bit of blue there for the sky, and a bit of yellow ochre, which will give me some yellows and at the same time mix in with some of the greens. And add a little bit of green to that as well. Going to mix a very thin bit of raw umber here. It's very, very thin for the stalks on the mushrooms. I'm mainly coming in with the yellows because I'd like to go over them with some blues for some, to see how they layer. Might come in with some orange. The colours are very vibrant. I really like that about them. And some raw umber here. There's some soil down here. Like that. So let's wait for this to dry and we will revisit. Now I'm going to use my fun technique of a interdental flosser to put in some more grasses. I can press down firmer. Look, and you even get a line through it, just like a vein through the grass. Okay, we'll just wait for that to dry. Might have to put in a little bit of detail into the mushrooms first. I love using the dagger brush as it can create such a tiny little sliver of shadow. But I will need to mix a little bit of raw umber with, I think, a bit of cerulean blue. So it's like a warm grey colour. And just gently putting it here underneath the mushroom, leaving a little sliver of white. There's this little extrusion out of the mushroom there, and because I've already got that colour there, I may need to combine them by going back and adding some raw umber to this grey so that they look related. And if you look at the pattern on the mushroom, it's just a few little spots in a stripy type pattern. Now to add some depth, I need to separate the foreground from the background by adding a darker value next to the stems or the stalks of the mushrooms. So now, with a palette knife, there's a few little scrapings, and now we can add some darker colour, maybe even some lamp black underneath some of those shapes to add a bit of interest. The paint is still wet, so I do need to hold back. And I'm going to lift some with my brush to see how that goes. And then add some darker paint in behind it. I'm just reaching here for some Payne's Grey at the moment to cool it down a bit. And then up here where it's gone quite pale, come in with some raw umber and a little bit underneath the mushroom head. Now, while all that's drying, and with our dagger, we can come in around these little lumpy bits on top of the mushroom. This is burnt sienna, and add a little bit of ultramarine to it. See how that goes. And now, with the very tip of the brush, of course you could use a smaller brush for this. And then you can blend it out. Maybe we could make a shadow on top of. Let's make a shadow. So burnt sienna and a bit of ultramarine blue. It'll be interesting to see. It's a little bit lumpy, so I need to now travel along the lumps. See how it goes over and in and over and in? It's a little bit thick up there, but that's okay. And now with this same shadowy colour, might bring it into this a little bit. I just realised that the sun was coming now from this side, so if there's any shadows, they definitely have to be on that side, don't they? Bet you picked up on that. So I'm going to blend that away on this side because it doesn't need to be as obvious. Based on the way the paint's been drying, I can see that the darker pigments don't seem to have that much pigment in them and seem to dry lighter. So you just have to keep reapplying darker paint. But in saying that, the lighter coloured pigments, the yellows and the oranges and the reds, are extremely vibrant. But as I said, I am suitably impressed with the vibrancy of the colour. I think it's fantastic. I tend to forget to look at my reference, just get carried away with it all. But that's the fun of it. And I do think that this down here would have a little bit of shadow. Now when this dries, we'll add some more grasses and see how we go. And maybe just a little bit of the values really do all the work, don't they? And then we can repeat the same colour. Now I'm purposely not using much green because we have red in the painting, and when you use red, a strong red, you wouldn't want to use too much strong green because they would just really do too much fighting. But what might be nice up there on top would be some distant grasses. Look, we could put some blue into that. And then they don't have to come straight out of the mushroom because then it looks a little bit too fake. I just realized that the stem would need a shadow too. So I think it would be a bit in there. Going to add some ultramarine blue to my previous mix. Just make it a little bit jagged because the texture of the mushroom is jagged. Bit of raw umber again. Now I know I haven't used all the colours here, but I do like what I have used. Now when this dries, we're going to rub off the masking fluid and lift the masking tape, and then we'll see what happens. Just adding some very dark darks for some depth. Now everything is dry, so it's time to remove the masking fluid. I'll try with my fingers first. Yeah, and it comes off. And there's that lovely little vein inside the grass blade. But now I'll just try this. No, I don't want to try that because it's peeling a little bit of the paper off. So in this instance, I'll just use my fingers. We can add a few little shadows, and we know that the sun's coming from over there, so there might be a little bit of shadow on these grasses, thinking that the light is coming from here. That'll do. So anyway, now let's remove the masking fluid gently. I'm going to peel it back very low to the paper. That's always the safest option. Oh, and there's a lovely little page in my new journal. I love it. You're allowed to love your own stuff too, you know, because the paint does most of the work anyway, so we're appreciating the paint. So what's the verdict? The verdict is it's a beautiful product. Well, two products here, the paints and the journal. If you'd like a gift for yourself or for someone you love, the link is in the description. Or later on in June, there'll also be a sale on. Anyway, thanks for watching and have a great day.